Hi, I'm Tim Iden with the City of Peoria. I'm the Digital Media Manager, and we're here live today in the Peoria Channel 11 studios for a live Q&A on Facebook on recycling. And we have with us today a few special guests. We have the Public Works Director, Kevin Burke. Kevin, thank you so much for coming.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. From the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. I almost said economic. That wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever. The Arizona Department of, I should have just said ADEQ.
Yeah,
right?
that works better.
We have JB Shaw. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And then with the City of Peoria, we have Steve Sandoval. He is the Public Works Superintendent. So thank you guys very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So our goal today is education. Education is really at the root of our recycling program here in Peoria, and we really want to make sure that we answer your questions. So as you're watching, we already have some questions that have been asked, but as you're watching, please feel free to ask, and our panelists will address them as they go on. But I'd like to start talking with Kevin real quick. Kevin, we have a bit of a problem with recycling contamination. Can you explain?
We do. It's a real problem. And by contamination, we're saying when things that are not recyclable are being put in the recycle bin, that's contamination, and it causes us all sorts of problems. So the main issue is that the commodity markets have really changed, and so it's very important that we get as clean a stream of recycled material as possible so that we can sort them and get them bundled and get them sold in the best market for the best price as quickly as possible, and really keep our costs down, and that's just from a financial standpoint. Obviously, from an environmental sustainability standpoint, we want to make sure that the good recycling material is getting recycled, and if it's contaminated, a lot of times the whole thing gets thrown out, and so things that are recyclable are getting now thrown in the landfill because they were contaminated by things that aren't recyclable. So getting those streams as pure as possible, as clean as possible, is best for both our economic interest and our environmental interest in Peoria.
Yeah, it sounds like there's two different ends of it. One is our pocketbook, which we all care about. If recycling contamination continues or gets worse, is it possible that in the future recycling can change?
Absolutely, and in fact, we're seeing across the country municipalities who are suspending or abandoning their recycling program because of these things. So it's critical that we stay on top of it from both of those perspectives to make sure that we have this valuable service for our community ongoing. And so right now it is still cost effective to recycle, but that we're on a very thin line, and we've got to watch every nickel and every element of it to make sure we continue on that side of the equation.
And the solution to that is pretty simple, and that is the reduction of recycling contamination.
Absolutely. I mean, if we can reduce that contamination, that's going to improve the stream, and it's going to improve our conditions as well as get more products recycled, and that's ultimately what we want to see.
Fantastic. Let's turn to you, JB, real quick. Sure. So you're here from the state of Arizona. You run this, for everybody. Is this something that is a Peoria problem, or is this something that's a statewide problem?
No, it's definitely statewide. It's countrywide, but it's definitely statewide. We're seeing, contamination rates anywhere from 20% to even 50%. So people are, I think, there's a term called wish cyclers or wish recyclers, and they're hoping what they put in the bin can get recycled. But unless you know exactly what you're supposed to put in the bin, a lot of those items, like he was just mentioning, will contaminate the load.
And contaminated loads are a real serious problem. As Kevin mentioned earlier, it could really cause an entire recycle truck to be, instead of going to the recycling plant, to be thrown away. Can you talk a little bit about what happens?
It can. So when the contaminated load of recyclables goes into a materials recovery facility, or MRF for short, it goes into a machine, and it at first gets sorted. And when you have things like plastic bags, or you have hoses, other things that are made of plastic that don't necessarily get recycled, it jams up the machinery, and then that's not very cost effective because you have individuals who have to go in there and they have to cut that stuff out. It then goes through a second process where you have people on the conveyor belt actually pulling some of that stuff out as best they can. But if a load is too contaminated, they will go ahead and just take that load and move it over to the trash side.
And if I can jump in, and particularly where we see some of that is yard waste. Yard waste can really spoil a whole bucket and a whole truckload. You know, if you've got so much grass clipping, so many branches, you see that.
We see it daily. Yard trimmings, plastic bags, yard waste, pet waste, just things that aren't meant to be recycled going into the recycle container.
Yeah, and if somebody, I like wish cycling, and I think a lot of times people think, well, my garbage can is full, I'll put it in the recycle bin, but that is not just ruining their recycle bin, but really is a systematic problem.
It absolutely is a systematic problem and one that we need to address.
Thank you. So I want to address a few questions from our Facebook users, and again, thank you all very much for taking the time to submit our questions. I want to make sure that they all get addressed. From Trisha Daly, reducing plastic waste is even better than recycling it. Does the City of Peoria offer any incentives to restaurants or other businesses to encourage them to reduce plastic bags, straws, cups, lids, and things like that? And why don't you go ahead and take that one, Kevin?
Okay. So on the commercial side of the recycling, the city does offer a commercial recycling, which is a service and an incentive in itself, as well as the fact that we offer it at a discount rate currently that is below market. So that's very much an incentive for restaurants and retail stores to be recycling. In terms of the specific use of single-use plastic or other single-use material, we've generally stayed out of it. Part is because the legislature told us to stay out of it. There was an initiative a couple years ago where the legislature passed a statute saying that municipalities cannot prohibit the use of plastic bags. And so while we've stayed out of it, the consumers have really stepped in and have pressured the various stores or retailers that they frequent to better those practices. So we're seeing Fry's phasing out the plastic bags. We're seeing Starbucks and McDonald's phasing out the plastic straws. So we know that that individual consumer pressure is driving the market towards that direction, even more so than government regulation at this point.
Great, yeah, and the market really will. I was just mentioning I was in California over the weekend, and the market there was obviously they took some intervention there, but everywhere I went, I saw a much more concerted effort for recycling than here in Arizona. JB, if you don't mind me asking you a question here, this is again from Trisha Daly. So again, Trisha, you sent 2 questions in. Thank you. Does Peoria's curbside recycling get processed locally or sent elsewhere? Also, what percentage of our curbside recycling actually gets recycled, and how much of it ends up in the landfill? And you don't have to talk about specifically Peoria, sorry.
Right.
But do you want to talk about just how much of the recycling gets recycled and how much of it ends up in the trash?
Right. So from what I've learned, we've had a lot of trouble with our mixed plastics and our mixed paper. So those are items that don't really have markets available currently, so they may be having a tougher time selling those bales off. So those may get landfilled if they run out of storage area for that, because you can only store so much product before you've got to start moving it somewhere. So I think that's a big issue right now, is those commodities. But there are things happening around the country that are really helping to address these issues. And we even have a paper mill potentially opening in Utah that will be closer than what we used to do, is shipping it to China. So there's going to be these opportunities starting to open up, and I've started actually talking to our surrounding states to see what we can do to help develop markets in the southwestern region of the United States to address the lack of end markets for the bales.
And that's a more important, oh, go ahead, Steve.
Just to tag on to that,
Yes,
so
please.
locally here in Peoria, we don't have a materials recovery facility. So we take all of our material to Phoenix, and we roughly dump about 16 tons of recyclables a year.
Wow.
So you were going to say?
Yeah, no, and I was just going to add to that part is that, so the sorting's going on there, they get them in the bales, and then they, sell them all over the world, wherever that product is. An exciting opportunity that we know Phoenix is pursuing with partnerships where other municipalities are promising streams is the agreement with Renewology to do a plastic recovery facility here in Phoenix that would turn plastics into fuels, particularly plastics 3 through 7. So that's an exciting project that's underway, just was awarded a couple months ago, I think, that contract to Renewology. So that's very exciting, and that would be something that would benefit the whole region and the state.
Right. And on that too, I'm also on the board for the Arizona Recycling Coalition, who gives out grants to various recycling projects. And there's some young entrepreneurs in Flag, in Tucson, around the state that are looking at how can we take these plastics that no one else wants and create some really neat things with them. So there's a lot of, people are really pushing to try and solve this issue. And I think it's working. So.
Yeah, the city of Peoria has a really, I would say, robust education program, because education really is the root of fixing this recycling problem. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about our education program?
Sure.
Thank you.
We've just revamped our inspection program. So we're currently going out and we're doing load audits to try and figure out where our biggest contaminated areas are. Then we're going to go into those areas with several inspectors, and we're going to start going in to try and help educate the residents on what's recyclable, what's not recyclable. So you will see more of a presence from our inspectors coming very soon.
Yeah, so this is something I did not know until I started working with this group, is that the city of Peoria actually has recycling inspectors that go out to people's houses. What are they looking for? So I'm a recycling inspector. Okay. I come up to a residency, I open that recycle bin. What am I looking for?
You're looking for anything that's not recyclable, such as the yard waste, the plastic bags. So you have the top 10 in the bin, that's all recyclable. If you're recycling properly, you'll see a tag left on your container that says, "Nice job, keep up the good work." This one is, yes, what is recyclable? You have your cardboard, paper, plastics, glass, and also aluminum and metal cans. And when you have something that is contaminated, you're going to be left a tag that lets you know, hey, look, don't put plastic bags in your recycle container. And then we give you a certain amount of time to correct it. If it's heavily contaminated, we will tag it, we'll turn the container around, and then we'll make contact with the resident to let them know to move some of that stuff over into the trash container.
And education is so important to this. What we're doing is we're going out and we're seeing something wrong, we're leaving education behind them. Is that correct? Does it ever get so bad to where an inspector would not pick up somebody's load?
Yes, we can go out, we can determine this is, let's say it's 50% contamination. We take the container, tag it, turn it around, and put it up into the driveway, letting the resident know that this is why we did not service your container today. We try to make contact either right there while we're on site or by phone call or email, just letting them know what happened and why they did not receive service that day.
And Tim, it's important to note that by city ordinance, if that continues, if people are, most of it is education. People just don't know, or they're wish recyclers, or putting things in there that they thought were recyclable. But then there are some who are purposely using the second can as a second garbage can and just filling it up. If that continues, city ordinance allows us to discontinue servicing that recycle bin and in fact pull the recycle bin back entirely. So that is kind of a final option for us as well.
Gotcha. So, but if you're doing a good job, and I don't have a picture up here, but if you're doing a good job, I love this. You get a tag that's got a big old smiley face on it and a thumbs up, and it says you are recycling well. So this is a really good program. We have 3 full-time recycling inspectors.
We do have 3 full-time recycling inspectors.
And that's how important this recycling contamination issue really is, because as you mentioned earlier, the cost savings is important as well.
It is. It's an important part to it. We got to get that right.
Thank you. Okay, let's address some. We're getting questions as we go. So again,
Great.
Thank you all very much for asking your questions as we go along here. I appreciate them. So let's go to Sarah Wells. Other municipalities stop picking up from repeat offenders of contaminated recycling. Is Peoria working to address contamination individually, since other methods such as paper inserts and social media aren't working? I think we just addressed that question.
We're actually at that point. So again, we've had in ordinance, we've had that power to remove. We're to the point where, okay, we're going to couple this with some strong education and some regular inspections. And if we're not getting that cooperation, that compliance, then we do look at removing. So I know Stephen and Becky Borquez in our solid waste group have put together the solid waste action plan and are really looking to move that forward, because the education gets us so far, but that one-on-one specific contact is probably what's going to get us over the hump to some better percentages of compliance.
And just to talk on that a little bit more, a lot of times when we go out there and we do make contact with residents, they simply just didn't know what they were supposed to put in the recycle container. So if you're ever unsure, I like to use when in doubt, throw it out. So.
Right, and we're going to talk a little bit about what is and what is not recyclable, because the stream of questions I have coming in are all pretty much at this point, can I recycle this and can I recycle that? So really, I don't think that there are bad actors out there necessarily, maliciously recycling badly. A lot of time it is just they don't know if it's recyclable. And Steve, this is, I think, an important question, because I'm not always the best recycler in the world. I'm getting so much better. I kind of erred on the side of recycle because that sounds more environmentally friendly. So if I wasn't sure, I figured I could throw it in the recycle bin and it would get figured out. But I'm really kind of part of the problem. Is that the case?
I think that goes back to your wishful recycling slogan there, where we want things to be recyclable, but they're not necessarily recyclable for various reasons. And we really want to stick to the guidelines and what's acceptable inside Peoria's recycle program.
I would recommend any citizens in Peoria can go to the City of Phoenix North Gateway transfer station and get a tour on Thursdays, or potentially set up a tour for a different day. But it walks you through, and you actually get to see what happens after you've thrown it in the blue bin or whichever bin you have. So that education alone, you'll come out going, now I get it. I get why you can't throw plastic bags, because they show you what happens. Right. So highly recommend.
Can you walk me through a little bit? So the load gets dumped and it goes on big conveyor belts. There are people actively going through it, gears, machines.
Yeah,
Tell me about it.
So you have it coming up this conveyor belt and all of a sudden hits the line, and they've got people there. They're just immediately trying to take any dangers out. So propane tanks that people think they can recycle, those things, they need to pull those out. I mean, even City of Phoenix has seen a car engine come in and they had to shut the whole line down. So there's things like that's all they're looking for. They're not pulling, oh, look, a cap that I want to recycle and things like that. They need to get the safety things taken care of so the whole line doesn't break down. And then after that, you've got periods where people are maybe pulling one or two particular items, like a plastic bag off that got through or things like that. So there's, and they always say, if something's smaller than 2 inches, it's not going to make it through the whole line, because there's all these cracks and crevices that it drops through. That stuff, they don't have the manpower time, things like that, to capture it and then re-put it into the recycling world, so it's going to go to the landfill. So hence, keep your caps on things and try to, if you're doing like foil, get a big ball of foil. Don't, save it up and get a big ball versus throwing little pieces of it in, because that's just going to contaminate paper or other plastics. It's the machines are using optical sorters too to sort this stuff. So they're looking for particular maybe symbols on the bottles or shapes, sizes. Also a reason you don't want to crush everything either, because it's reading that object, and if it's not three-dimensional, it may sneak through, and a crushed aluminum can may end up, you never know, into paper or things like that. So
That's really good to know. I was not.
That's why you should take that tour of that facility.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the facility, and we have a video I think I'll put up later this week to show people what that looks like.
Yeah, Tim, I just wanted to add to that. So the city of Peoria has really been forward thinking on this. So we contract with Phoenix and the MRF that both JB and Stephen were talking about. But because we are so interested in making sure that we're getting the best product bundled at the end of it, we have contributed $1 million towards their upgrade in that sorter equipment. So coming this September, October time period, maybe October, November, Phoenix is going through a full upgrade of that sorting equipment. So new opticals, new radars, new sensors to that. And Peoria contributed to that technology upgrade because we have an interest in seeing that high purity level be obtained in the sorting. So your fees at work.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
good to know.
I jumped in on that.
Yeah. See, I feel like every time I bring the recycling group in, I always feel like I learned something new every single time. Steve, we talked a little bit about plastic bags. I want to mention that some more. Those are a real problem. Can you tell me why?
You know, the main reason is that it gets stuck in the equipment at the materials recovery facility, and it's really hard to get out. I think this past year we did a recycling bag challenge where we were able to have about 18 schools within the Peoria School District do a competition to see how many plastic bags they could collect so that we could get them out of that recycling stream. We were able to collect about 6 tons. The winner of the school then received like a park bench that was made out of those plastic bags.
Thank you. So I got a plastic bag here. So this is your regular old plastic bag from the grocery store.
Right.
But I also learned something, and this is why I think it's so important for the public. Oh, Becky's got it for me. Sorry, I was talking off mic there, and everybody heard it. But I feel terrible. I recycle this, and things like this all the time. Is this considered a plastic bag too?
It is considered a plastic bag. So what you can do with those plastic bags is take them back to the grocery store, and they will take them and recycle them properly.
And I really, it had a recycle symbol on it, so I have been recycling these, but that doesn't necessarily mean. But that comes back to JB, what you said, when in doubt, throw it out?
Throw it out, yeah. A lot of that, if you're not willing to do the research, don't throw it in there and contaminate everyone else's hard work in trying to figure it out. So you want to make sure you know the right things to put in there, and there's probably some great resources on Peoria's website.
I was just about to give that. That's a
So-
great segue. For more information on recycling, you can go to PeoriaAZ.gov/recycle. And there's tons of information on there. All of these wonderful things, is simple. And we try to make it easy, right? What can't you recycle? Soiled paper, styrofoam cups. So this is, keep this on your refrigerator, keep this at home, and then when in doubt, if you're not sure, throw it out. Because like I said, I was kind of hoping that it was recyclable, and it is not. So
I think a good thing too with these contests, the contests are great because you capture a lot of material, but those participating, I'd like to say, please don't consume more than you normally would. Use those reusable bags. We need to reduce and reuse before we're recycling all the time. And Americans in general they consume twice as much as any other country. So per person, we're at almost 8 pounds, and most people are at 4 pounds. So we need to start reducing what we're creating in the first place, which will also help us manage our recycling overall.
Right, and we're going to start talking about what's recyclable here in a second. But I have one last question that I think is really valuable. I'm sorry, I'm just jumping back and forth. I have another question from a Facebook user here. Sorry, that was a long pause, wasn't it? Kevin, sorry, I'm reading my own question.
I threw it.
Yeah, I know, right? Kevin. People that live in multifamily homes, in apartment complexes and townhomes and things like that, some of them don't have access to recycling. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, a couple years ago, the state legislature reclassified apartments or multifamily housing from residential to commercial, which put them in the open market. And so a lot of apartment complex owners or managers have contracted with haulers who don't offer a recycle program, or they've just chosen not to subscribe to that recycle program. The city of Peoria does offer a recycling program to multifamily housing. If they contract for service with the city of Peoria, we do the trash and the recycling, and again, our recycling rates on the commercial side are very competitive and in fact below market at this point, so it's a good incentive. If they're not seeing that service, really where they need to go is to their manager and encourage them to subscribe to that. And it's not hard. Usually what happens is you get an extra dumpster added to the back lot or wherever the trash is taken. Some are more aggressive where they'll do hallway pickups, things of that nature, but right now there is no forced recycling, so to speak.
And we talked about letting the market take its force. When you go, choose an apartment, there's a real simple thing you can do is ask them about their recycling, and if they get asked often enough, maybe we'll make a change. So
let's hope. I mean, I think it's an important, and again, it's driven by those who want the service. And so if your apartment complex hears that its residents want the service, and that's a factor in selecting their location, they're more inclined to buy the service and provide it.
So, last question. I actually remembered what it was. I forgot right in the middle there. There goes the long pause. Okay, last question just to the group. We talked a little bit about like reuse, reduce. What else can we do besides recycle so that we don't have to recycle those things in the first place? And I point to what you all have sitting in front of you on the table. Who wants to field this question? Okay, please, yes, please.
So there are many things you can do, and I actually provide ideas in videos I do for ADEQ on contamination and trying to help educate and talk on what these guys are also talking about out there and just complement it. So, you've got this, you've got reusable utensils, straws. They even come in little kits now where it's a fork, knife, spoon, straw, cleaner for the straw so you don't have that nasty buildup inside. You've got your reusable grocery bags. There's at my work, since 2013 I decided, I'm going to stop using paper towels in the bathroom, and I bring my own little face towel. I bring 5 a week. I got one for every day, and I just go in, bring it with me, dry off. I don't use paper towels anymore. And I think not only do we need to look at substituting things that we can continually reuse, which I even have a coffee mug that I'll bring to the cafe and say, hey, can you just fill this up? But we need to look at how we're doing that, and there's lots of other things where if you're not buying recycled content products, so things made from recycled content, then you're not fully recycling either, because that's the end of it. That's the end. We got to support the market to keep it moving. So if we're not, I just bought these cool sneakers I found online that are 100% recycled content, made from fish netting and plastic bottles and tires and all this stuff. I mean, they look normal. They don't look like a mess like that. But so there are lots of things you can do and check out. I mean, even pizza boxes you can turn into a laptop stand if you want, or use them and make a solar oven to do that little fun project with your kids if you can. So there's a lot of things we can do. We just got to kind of make a little effort and find out what's out there.
And we have more ideas at PeoriaAZ.gov/recycle. Do you have, does ADEQ have a website that?
So if you go on we have a YouTube page. Okay. So they can search, go on YouTube and just type ADEQ recycling, and it'll bring up a lot of my videos and then a bunch of other videos we have for the agency as well. So I think that's a good place.
Great. Steve, is there anything you want to add to that? Things we can do to, on top of recycling, to not have to put those things in the garbage or the recycle bin?
Well, I think, and one thing that I started doing at my home is I now use, and I keep going back to plastic bags because it's probably our #1 contaminant here in the city of Peoria as well as other places. I started using the reusable cloth bags where you take them to the grocery store, and instead of using their plastic bags, you just reuse them. So we do offer those. I better back that up a little bit. We do have those, and if you attend things like some of our Park Fests, you can play games and learn a little bit more about recycling and how to properly recycle, and we give out things like this and those types of bags.
So I've been here for 10 years with the city of Peoria, and I've been going to events and fairs and Park Fests for 10 years, and my favorite place to stop is always the recycle booth, because A, you always have cool stuff, and B, you always have something to do, a game or something interactive. So our public education is a really important part of our entire, it's more than just hanging things on people's doors. It's really about that universal education. So just, I guess for me, great job to the recycling department, and sitting behind me over here is Becky Borquez, and she is a wonderful educator, and I've run into her a million times out at a million Park Fests. And if you come out to another Peoria event, you can come hang out with the recycle division. Just thought I'd give you a shout out there, Becky. You had to do it. Anything you want to add?
No, you're
No,
right on.
good.
This is
All right, so
stuff.
let's get to the million questions here. I guess this is just the speed round here of what is and what is not recyclable. So one of the questions I had was water bottles. Well, I'm just going to go down the row. I'm going to start with you, Steve. Water bottles, the plastic caps on the end, and also not just water bottles, but like contaminated bottles. So let's say I had a Gatorade bottle, right? Do I have to rinse it out? Do I have to take the cap off? Do I leave the cap on? How does it work?
So if you're going to recycle that bottle, it is recyclable. You want to rinse it out first. It doesn't have to be cleaned with soap or anything. Just a quick rinse with water, dry it out, and then you leave the cap on because it is smaller than those 2 inches that JB was talking about earlier, where the cap, if you throw the cap away on its own, it may not make it to where it's supposed to go.
You know, and I did not know the 2 inches thing. That is just fascinating, and it makes perfect sense because I've seen the equipment working, and it's going to fall through. So that really helps me to kind of visualize, you know, the cap is recyclable, but if I just throw it in there by itself, it's just going to fall through. So that's absolutely fascinating. Okay, I got an easy one for you because one of our Facebook users asked. Let's see. This is Jean Santangelo wants to know about brown paper bags.
Yes, brown paper bags are recyclable. I think the one thing that I've been told from City of Phoenix is if it rips, it's paper, put it in there. So,
Gotcha. So follow-up from the same person is, what about glossy magazines?
I believe those are fine, yeah. Magazines are paper, so yeah.
Okay. But then when we get down to the level of like paper towels.
No, please.
Okay, so
no.
that is a little bit different, even though
Yeah.
the word paper is in there.
Paper
Kleenex,
towels.
paper towels, talk about that.
Yeah, paper towels, napkins, tissues, that's, those are pretty much end-of-life paper products. Those are meant to just do one thing and be done with.
Yeah.
So please don't put those in there because it's gross, but it also, you use a napkin, you're getting all the greases and food waste and all that on there, and you don't want to mix that when you're pulping paper. So, keep napkins, paper towels, tissues, all of that out.
Kevin, this one's for you. Mail. Let's talk, so you get mail. Sometimes you have an envelope that's got bubble wrap in it. You've got mixed material mail, glossy papers. What am I recycling?
I mean, a lot of times your junk mail is absolutely recyclable, but if you've got bubble wrap, if you've got the styrofoam peanuts, you got to take those out.
What about this is really for me. I don't know the answer. What about an envelope? Because it's got like the licky plate. Is it still cool to recycle,
okay,
even though
put it
it's
in there.
got a? Okay, good.
Put it in there.
It's paper, right? So let's.
It's paper. It's pretty amazing to watch. When I worked for the city of Flagstaff, they had an active paper mill that did the recycling, and it was pretty fascinating to watch that stuff just get all melted down and reused. So it definitely can be recycled.
Cool. As long as we're talking about mail, Amazon delivery. I got a big old box from Amazon. What do I do with it?
You basically, you can throw the box out. Again, take the plastic wrapping or shipping paper out. You're going to throw that into the trash can. But you want to break the box down so that it fits in your recycle container and it doesn't get stuck during service.
So
Another important use though of those boxes is if you're doing any yard work and you've got cactus, that you've put those cactus in that box and then, well, I guess that's not perfect because you got to put that in the trash, but
You're right. For bulk trash pickup, you don't want to use those boxes to put cactus inside of it so that the operators that are on the ground putting that into the truck don't hurt themselves.
That's good to know.
And some of that film that comes in those boxes can actually go in with your grocery bag, the plastic bags, and go back to the grocery store.
What about the peanuts?
Not peanuts, no.
Peanuts. No
Reuse those.
Styrofoam?
Reuse the peanuts.
Okay.
At ADQ, I had one of our lab techs came to me the other day and said, hey, he had a box, huge box full of them. And we just said, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. Well, it turns out our ADOA, the Department of Administration, has a surplus group, and they need those to ship certain things. So we're just taking them from our office and moving them over to a different office. They're reused. The customers down the line reuse them. So
Yeah, you're going to ship something eventually, right?
Yeah,
You know, it's you dump those peanuts into a bag and then hang on to them until the next time you ship. You don't have to pay for more. That's a real simple, it's that wheel of recycling and
if
reusing.
we're going to create it, then we might as well keep it moving as long as we can. So
That's a good one. Okay, Sorry, I want to make sure I hit everybody's questions. Sorry. I just had a really good one here. You want to jump? Please, yeah, please. While I try to read my Facebook views here. Sorry.
I did want to let you know that we are also adding things to our webpage as often as we possibly can. So we'll have new videos coming, and we're also trying to get a widget on there on the website so that you can just log in. You can put inside the little box, is this recyclable? You punch in the name, and it lets you know yes or no. So we are working on that right now.
And if we have any teachers or businesses or anyone listening, we also have a recycling toolkit on the azdeq.gov website. So it just gives them kind of good tips on how to get started, how to do a little waste audit, and then kind of move from there. So if I know a lot of teachers contact me about recycling programs and how to get started, we've got some great info on azdeq.gov.
Tim, one of the other things that the Solid Waste Division is working on too is some improved markings or labeling on the bins itself about what is recyclable, what isn't. I know that we've got some lists on there, but sometimes that's not the easiest to reference or see. You kind of like the icons and the quick reference to that. So we're always looking at new ideas for how we can improve the barrel itself to give people hints and helpful tools to know what to put in and what not to put in.
That's good to know. Okay, so some other things that I'm just absolutely terrible at recycling, and I don't know. Let's try here, Kevin. I'll give you an easy one. Paper plates. It's paper, but it's a tough one, right? Because
it's in the same venue as kind of the used paper towels and the used napkins and things of that nature. So it's a no-go on the paper plates. So
okay.
You can leave those out. That would be great.
So this is a good one right here. No electronics or hazardous waste. So I've got electronics, hazardous waste. Is there a way to recycle electronics? How would I do that?
There is. So you can actually take your electronics down to the city of Glendale, and they will accept your e-waste. If you just take the city, City of Glendale landfill, not to the city of Glendale, the city of Glendale landfill. Please don't take it down to the city of Glendale. You can take it there, and they will accept it.
Okay, and let's address a couple of other things that are on this list. Hazardous waste, that's a no-no. That's not going to be recycled anywhere at all. But we do have household hazardous waste pickup. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We do have a household hazardous waste program where we have 3 events a year. You can call in during certain months. We take phone calls for about a month, and then we schedule a pickup at your home. So you're going to take all of your household hazardous waste. You're going to put it in like that Amazon box you were talking about. You're going to label it HHW, and you'll place all of your HHW items in that box, and you'll leave it up by your either driveway or carport. And you call into the city of Peoria. We schedule you on your service day. We come out and we pick that stuff up at no cost.
Can you give me a couple of examples of the type of things that you would put in your household hazardous waste?
You can put things like, let's just say Windex, some aerosol cleaners. We do not want paint. Please do not try to send us your latex paints. Just some of those types of items.
Very good.
But if they do a little research, there are places that might take their paint. So just Google it.
Right, and same goes with batteries. There are places that will take batteries and recycle them, and there are places that won't.
Right.
So let's talk about food waste, if you don't mind, JB. What happens? Can food waste be recycled, and do I have another option?
No, it should not go in your recycling container. If anything, start backyard composting. That's a great way to do it. There are also certain vendors around that may come to your house and pick up a bucket of your food waste, leave you an empty one, and they go compost it. It costs a little bit to do that, but for me, I just compost it in the backyard and it goes into my gardens. But yeah, as far as going into your blue bin or your recycling bin, it's gonna contaminate everything in there, and it's hazardous for the workers as well. So you don't need all those molds and all that stuff growing in there.
And if I can add one more thing. The city of Peoria does not have a composting program. However, if you are interested in composting, we do provide a container for you. All you have to do is call into the solid waste line, and we can schedule that and send you a container.
You know, and I know we've had classes throughout the years on things like composting and you know, educating the public on ways that they can compost. So even though we don't have a program, we've done education in the past
Yes.
for that as well. Okay, I got this question for you, Steve. Again, I keep coming back to you. Sorry. What is the craziest thing you've seen recycled? What are things putting in that recycle bin? What type of things?
You know, a lot of people think that because it's metal, they will put engine parts in the recycle container. We really don't want to recycle engine parts. That's, I think, the craziest thing that I've seen to date is people continue to put those engine parts in there because they're made of metal, aluminum, or plastic, but then when you combine them together, they're not in that single use.
Kevin, clothes. We don't want to put clothes in the recycle bin, but what can we do with it?
You know, there's lots of options for clothes. Certainly, secondhand stores will take it. You even get the tax credit for it. So we certainly encourage folks to take those and reuse. I mean, that's the other part of the triangle there is reuse clothing. But it is not fit for the recycle bin, and it has kind of some of the same hazards that the plastic bags do. It gets caught in the machinery and gunks it up or pulls it to a stop and just doesn't work.
All right, I'm going to check here for any other comments. I think we hit all of them.
I think a good one to tell people is don't put sharps in there too, in the recycling bin.
Yeah.
Needles, those
Oh,
are
yeah.
not something they can put there. They're gonna have to, we have specific guidelines on Department of Environmental Quality's website as far as what residents should do with them, and businesses as well, but never put those in the recycle bin because that again puts the workers at danger, and they're not recyclable.
Gotcha. And I guess, sorry, I got another Facebook question about plastic grocery bags. We mentioned it before, but I want to mention it one more time. You can't put plastic grocery bags in the recycle bin. It's actually very bad because it gunks up the whole system. What can I do with them?
You can take them to your local grocery store, and they will accept them, and they will make sure they're recycled properly.
And I've started to notice every grocery store I go in, I now know where it is because in every grocery store, it's towards the front entrance. So once you start paying attention, you'll see them there at the front.
The neat thing, last year, the state fair actually collected them, and they had these topiary elephants that they stuffed. People could bring them in and stuff them full, and they ended up collecting over 1,000 pounds just in the duration of the state fair doing that. So ultimately, don't use them. Don't bag your recyclables either. I know that's a big one that they see in the bins too. They should be clean already. When you're putting them in there, they should be clean enough. You don't need to bag them because that's just going to do the same thing that a plastic bag will do. So.
Yeah.
I think we've hit all of our Facebook questions. I'd like to just close and give you guys an opportunity to reach out to all the people that are watching right now and the people that are going to watch in the future, and just give them a message about what you want them to know most about recycling. And Kevin, we'll start with you.
Recycling is still a great service and a great responsibility that people are taking. And so I'm very enthused that people are taking the time to learn about what's right and what's wrong with recycling because, again, there's an economic benefit, there's a social benefit, and there's definitely an environmental benefit, and we don't want that to go by the wayside. So thank you for taking the time to learn what's right and what's not right. I think keep focusing on those big three of cardboard, plastic bottles, and aluminum cans. Obviously, there's a lot more, but if you can even just stay with those three and always keep those front of mind, you're going to be in good shape.
Fantastic. JB.
Yeah, I'd just like to challenge everyone to just change one thing that you do in your normal routine every day as far as, instead of taking a plastic cup from the store, bring your own reusable water bottle, bring your bags, bring whatever you can to reduce the waste you're creating in the first place. And just do that. You could do it once a week, once a month, whatever you can do, but just try to reduce it because recycling's amazing and it's gonna catch what we can't reuse, but ultimately let's try to reduce the waste we already create.
Steve?
Well, that doesn't leave me much to say, does it? So what I'm going to do instead is give you a couple of tips for putting your trash out on service days.
Please.
Make sure that your trash containers are out at 6 a.m. We're constantly changing routes, so the trash or recycle driver might come at different times. And also make sure that, oh, you have the whole thing there. Look at that.
Hey, look at that.
Place the cans
We
in the
came
street.
prepared, yeah.
And make sure your containers are 4 foot apart. General rule is to spread your arms apart and make sure that you have that much distance between each container, and don't overfill, and also bag and tie.
So the stand with your arms apart, I actually do that every time I put my, it was in one of the tips that you guys sent out, and sometimes my son, who's actually here right now running audio in there, hi, sometimes I'll go out, he'll take the trash out and I'll go out there, I'll be like, it's not, it's not 4 feet apart. So I get a little naggy on that. So that's great. These are all fantastic tips. The cans out by 6 p.m. is a really important one. Can you explain that a little bit?
Just out by 6 a.m. 6 a.m.
Did I
in the
say
morning.
6 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
I did.
You can't put them out at
There you
6
go.
p.m.
Yeah.
the night before.
Sorry,
Yes.
6 a.m. Why is that so important?
We do change routes, or sometimes we have truck issues, so we want to make sure that if everybody has their can out by 6 a.m., you do receive service.
Right, because you might get picked up every day at 10 o'clock, and then for whatever reason,
Right.
it's picked up a little earlier, or a little later.
Absolutely.
So very good. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank our panelists, all three of you guys. Thank you for giving me your 45 minutes of your time today. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. For more information, you can go to www.PeoriaAZ.gov/recycle. You can continue to ask us questions through Facebook. Our social media is just a great opportunity to interact. It's checked all day long. Ask us questions. I pass them along to the experts and give you an answer right there on social media. So feel free to keep please asking your questions, and we will keep answering them. And please keep doing what you're doing, because overall, recycling is still such an important part of our entire solid waste program. So keep doing what you're doing, make a couple of small changes, and thank you very much for giving us your time and for watching our live Q&A here on Peoria Facebook. Thank you.